I turned to the others. You deserve to know what's in those files she keeps. Not the curated stories you've been told, the real ones. The air in the atrium shifted. People weren't just watching me anymore. They were watching her. And for the first time, she looked like she knew she might be losing control. The moment I stepped out of the glasshouse atrium, my phone buzzed. Stay where you are. We need to talk. Now. I didn't respond. But 10 minutes later, as I stood under the dim glow of a street lamp, I heard the sharp click of heels approaching. Miss Carmichael emerged from the shadows, her crimson suit cutting a severe line against the night. You've put yourself in a dangerous position, she said without preamble. I'd say the same about you, I replied. Her eyes narrowed. Do you have any idea how fragile trust is in a network like this? One whisper, one doubt, and the whole thing can collapse. Which is exactly what you started tonight. Good, I said, my voice steady. Maybe it needs to. She stepped closer, her perfume faint but deliberate, her tone dropping into something almost coaxing. Logan, you've come further than I expected. I've given you the tools, the confidence, the presence you have now. And you'd throw that away to make a point. I shook my head. No. I'm taking what I learned and removing the part that's poison. Her smile thinned. You think you can lead them without me? They'll scatter. Or worse, they'll turn on you. I've seen it happen. A figure emerged from across the street, Owen. He didn't approach, but he lingered just close enough to hear. Miss Carmichael noticed him, and her voice sharpened. Already recruiting allies, I see. Careful, Logan. Loyalty is fickle. Today he's with you. Tomorrow, maybe he isn't. I met her gaze. The difference between you and me? I'm not asking for loyalty. I'm offering choice. She studied me for a long moment, then said quietly, You've just declared war on the person who built you. And I don't lose wars. She turned on her heel and walked away, the sound of her heels fading into the night. Owen stepped up beside me. You know she's not bluffing, right? If she feels her grip slipping, she'll go for the throat. I glanced back toward the atrium. Then I guess it's time to make sure she's not the only one holding a knife. For the next week, I moved carefully, not disappearing, but keeping just far enough off Ms. Carmichael's radar that she couldn't predict my next step. Owen became my first point of contact. He had history with both me and Ms. Carmichael, which made him the perfect bridge to the others. We agreed on one thing: if she thought she could keep the network loyal by secrecy and control, we'd break that by giving them information she didn't want them to have. The first to join us was Evelyn. At a quiet rooftop cafe, I slid a thin envelope across the table. Inside were copies of Ms. Carmichael's notes on her, every hidden detail, every piece of leverage she'd kept tucked away. Evelyn read in silence, her calm expression hiding the flicker of anger in her eyes. She told me she never kept records, she murmured. She keeps them on all of us, I said. And she'll use them when it suits her. By the time she left the table, she'd agreed to quietly back me. Next was Marcus. He was harder. Loyal by nature, wary of being manipulated. I caught him outside the conservatory one morning. You believe in strength, right? I said. In control. He gave a short nod. Then you should know she's losing hers. And she'll drag you down when she falls. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. But he didn't walk away either. Within days, word started to spread in subtle ways. Conversations cut short when Ms. Carmichael entered the room, glances exchanged between members when she gave instructions. Her grip was loosening. Then, without warning, I received an invitation. Not from her, from Casey. My loft. Tomorrow night. Everyone's coming. Even her. Decide where you stand. When I arrived, the atmosphere was taut. The entire network was there, clustered in small groups. Miss Carmichael stood near the center, poised and unreadable, but I could see the tension in her posture. Casey clinked her glass for attention. We've all been dancing around this for weeks, she said. It's time to decide, are we following her lead, or are we choosing a new one? Every eye in the room turned, shifting between Miss Carmichael and me. The air in Casey's loft was so tense it felt electric. No one moved, no one spoke, just a shifting tide of glances between Miss Carmichael and me. She broke the silence first, her voice steady, but with an edge meant to cut. Logan, you've been busy. Whispering doubts, passing around stolen documents, painting me as the villain. I didn't have to paint you as anything, I replied. Your own actions did that. I just made sure people saw the whole picture. Her gaze swept the room. And yet, here we are. All of you have benefited from me. Without my guidance, most of you wouldn't be where you are. Remember that before you throw your lot in with someone who's been here for what? 2 months. Evelyn stepped forward. Time doesn't matter. Intent does. Marcus, standing near the window, crossed his arms. And control. Owen added, and choice. Which is something you've never actually given us. It was the first time multiple voices had openly challenged her, and I could see the faintest crack in her composure. Is this a mutiny then? She asked, her tone still controlled, but her eyes sharper now. No, I said. It's liberation. Casey looked like she was about to speak, but then she surprised me. I've made my choice, she said loudly, stepping toward me. And it's not you, Logan. Before I could react, she turned to Ms. Carmichael. I've seen how you work, and I know you'll win. So I'm staying on your side. A murmur rippled through the loft. I felt a cold weight in my stomach. Ms. Carmichael's smile was small, but I could see the satisfaction behind it. Wise decision, Casey. But then Casey leaned closer to me, just enough to whisper so only I could hear. Don't take it personally. You'll see why later. She stepped back to stand beside Miss Carmichael, but her eyes lingered on mine for a fraction longer than they should have, a flicker of something I couldn't read. Then it's settled, Miss Carmichael said, reclaiming the room. Anyone who stands with Logan, you've made your bet. And soon, you'll see what it's like to lie in it without my protection. Half the room stayed with her. The other half moved closer to me. The line was drawn. But as I left that night, one thought wouldn't leave my mind. If Casey was playing some kind of deeper game, I needed to figure it out before Ms. Carmichael did. 2 days passed without a single word from Casey. The split at the loft had made the network unstable, half watching me for leadership, half waiting for Ms. Carmichael to make her next move. Then, just after midnight, my phone buzzed. Meet me. Same rooftop cafe you met Evelyn. No one follows you. See. The streets were empty and cool, the city lights turning the pavement into scattered gold. Casey was already there when I arrived, leaning against the railing with a coffee in one hand and a small, battered notebook in the other. Didn't think you'd show, she said without looking at me. I almost didn't. Hard to trust someone who just stood next to the person trying to break me. She smirked faintly. Good. Distrust keeps you alive in her game. Then she handed me the notebook. Read it. The pages were filled with notes, dates, names, years of observations on Ms. Carmichael. Who she recruited, how she kept them in line, the leverage she used, and, most importantly, moments when her control slipped. I looked up. You've been keeping this since before I even showed up? Casey nodded. I joined her 2 years ago. Pretended to be loyal, let her think I bought into the whole mentorship thing. But I've been collecting every thread I can pull. I just needed someone new, someone she underestimated, to be the spark. Me, I said. Exactly. You rattled her faster than I could have alone. Now she's making mistakes. I flipped to a page marked with a red ribbon. It listed something called the Ledger, a master record of every piece of leverage Ms. Carmichael had on the network. Hidden, according to Casey, in her private office in the green-doored building where I'd first seen the portraits. If we get the ledger, Casey said, we don't just break her control, we make sure she can't rebuild it. And you're sure it's there? Casey's smile turned sharp. I'm sure because I put it there. She doesn't know I know the combination. A plan began to take shape between us, piece by piece. But before we could finalize it, Casey's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and swore under her breath. She's moving up her timeline, Casey said. There's a meeting tomorrow night at the Glass House. Full attendance. If we're going to get the ledger, it has to be before then. I looked at the notebook again, the years of quiet work, the risk she'd taken. This wasn't just my fight anymore. We met an hour past midnight. The streets were quiet, the city's usual hum muted in the cool night air. Casey was dressed in dark jeans and a fitted jacket, hair tied back, her usual bravado sharpened into focus. Once we're inside, we have maybe 15 minutes before the motion sensors reset, she said, handing me a small flashlight. Follow my lead, no noise, no hesitation. The green door loomed ahead, unmarked, unassuming, but I could feel the weight of what was behind it. Casey produced a key from inside her jacket, one I'd never seen before, and unlocked it in a single smooth turn. We slipped inside. The air was cooler here, faintly perfumed with the same vanilla scent I'd always associated with Ms. Carmichael. The hallway stretched ahead, the portraits of students lining the walls like silent witnesses. We moved quickly, heading straight for the narrow staircase at the end. Casey knelt at the door to Ms. Carmichael's private office, working the combination lock with steady hands. She never changes this, Casey whispered, almost to herself. Too confident. A soft click, and we were in. The office was exactly as I remembered from my first visit, precise, immaculate, everything in its place. Casey headed straight to a tall cabinet in the corner, unlocking it with a small silver key. Inside was a single black binder with no label. The ledger. She pulled it free and opened it just enough for me to see names, dates, transactions, personal secrets scrawled in Ms. Carmichael's elegant handwriting. Every member of the network, stripped bare on paper. We copy it, get out, and decide when to burn the original, Casey said. But then the door clicked shut behind us. We spun around. Ms. Carmichael stood there, crimson suit immaculate, a faint smile playing on her lips. I wondered which of you would come for it first, she said softly. I'm almost disappointed it took this long. Casey's voice was cold. You've lost control, and you know it. Have I? Ms. Carmichael stepped inside, letting the door close behind her. Or have I just brought you exactly where I wanted you? From the shadows near the filing cabinet, two figures emerged, Marcus and Evelyn. Their expressions were unreadable, their stances casual, but blocking the only way out. Casey muttered under her breath, she played us. Miss Carmichael's smile widened. Of course I did. And now, Logan, we see exactly where your loyalties lie, in front of everyone who matters. Miss Carmichael's gaze locked on me, the ledger between Casey's hands like a live fuse. Choose, she said. Her or me. The room held its breath. Marcus and Evelyn were stone still. Casey's eyes burned into mine, not pleading, just waiting. I stepped forward slowly, taking the ledger from Casey. For a moment, I let Ms. Carmichael think I'd hand it to her. Her smile returned, smug and certain. Then I turned and tossed it straight into the small fireplace in the corner. The paper caught instantly, flames racing over every page of leverage she'd built for years. She lunged forward, but Marcus moved first, holding her back. Evelyn didn't move at all. You had control because of those pages, I said, my voice steady. Now it's gone. Everyone here decides for themselves who to follow, or if they follow anyone at all. Casey's lips curved into a small, satisfied smile. Game over. When the last embers died, the room was quiet. Miss Carmichael stood perfectly still, her crimson suit sharp against the ashes. You think you've won, she said at last. I met her gaze. No. I think we're free. Outside, Casey and I walked into the cool night. The air felt lighter, cleaner, like the city itself had been holding its breath and finally let it go. She'll try again, Casey said. Maybe, I replied. But this time, she won't have a network to catch her. We disappeared into the city lights, not as student and mentor, but as equals, and for the first time since it began, the story was ours.